last episode, episode number 3 of my Ben Solo build. I hope you enjoyed the intro and you were able to appreciate the time I put into this build. I think it came out pretty well with gorgeous RGB lighting, some extra exhaust fun put in the case, and RGB RAM, RGB motherboard, you name it. It's a great build. I'm very happy with it, but I would like as well to talk you through about doing a Ryzen build, as this was my first one ever. First of all, I choose a quality motherboard, an Asus one, an x370, and to be honest I was expecting a little bit more. The BIOS, although much more stable than early days, seems to be still a little bit to be ironed out. Especially with Asus, it's a little bit confusing that they are not using XMP profile, or they use XMP profile but they call them d.o.c.p, and this is not documented in the manual either. So it was a little bit daunting to understand my way through the BIOS. Another letdown from Asus was their software, the AI suite, which is supposed to allow you to do auto overclocking and manage as well fan profiles directly in Windows. Looks like it's not available since Windows 10 creator update, and I found a version that was not available on their website. They completely removed it from the Asus website. I found a version of it in the forum of the ROG from Asus, so an unofficial version I was able to install, and it caused a great deal of crashes, reboots, and very hard crashes. The crashes were so hard that the computer was going into power lock. So being at the point unaware that the issue was down to the Asus software, I went all the way out buying a new power supply, because I thought to have issues with my PSU, this Cooler Master G550M, which is 80 plus bronze only. So I figured, well, maybe it's not Asus fault. I didn't know at the time that a software can cause such as a hard crash, because the crash was so hard that the power button and the reset button were not working at all. I had to switch off the PSU to be able to restart the computer. So I figured, well, my PSU is about to go. I bought an Corsair RM550X, which I'm very happy with, but turns out to be that it was an unnecessary purchase, because I had still issues even with a new power supply. Now, on top of those issues, I start to identify graphics drivers issues with artifacts. Now, obviously I can go out and buy a power supply off the shelf, but buying a GPU, especially now with the prices we have, is not something you can just do to see if that is the issue. So I figured that it can be something more related to software. And I remember that when I started the first installation of the drivers, when I finished my build, I went through the installation of the GPU drivers for my RX 480, and then I installed the Ryzen chipset driver, but I wasn't able to install the Ryzen chipset driver. So AMD is making it very confusing and very hard to do this process, because the installer of the chipset, if it's detecting the GPU drivers, is actually reporting the driver version of the GPU rather than the one of the chipset. Absolutely confusing. So I uninstalled the GPU driver just through Windows, reinstalled the chipset drivers from Ryzen, reinstalled the GPU drivers, but still I had instability. I then use DDU, which is a very handy utility that allows you to remove all the drivers, but still then after reinstalling the graphic drivers I was experiencing issues. I then read that DDU, when uninstalling GPU drivers, is also uninstalling chipset drivers. So I thought that was a culprit. So I reinstalled all the Ryzen drivers, the chipset one, then I installed the GPU drivers again, but still I was having issues. Then I realized that it was down to the AI suite, so I uninstalled that. Once I did that, the system was stable finally at core clocks. I then went ahead trying to do some RAM overclocking, and oh boys, that was again another nightmare. Now for the RAM, I went with the Corsair Vengeance RGB. The exact model number is the CMR16GX 4M2C3000C15, so 3000 MHz and latency 15. Now, although the RAM is rated for 3000, be aware that no matter which RAM you buy, anything that is above the DDR standard frequency of 2133, my RAM box just fell off, anything that is above 2133 MHz is considered overclocking. I was not really aware of that. I thought that by setting it to 3000 that will match the spec of my RAM. Again, the BIOS of Asus was not even listing 3000 as an option, and that may be down to the fact that it's not part of the official JEDEC standards for DDR4. It's not one of listed in the frequencies if you go and check out the wiki page about it. But then with the BIOS update that I installed on the motherboard, 3000 MHz was selectable. I just went ahead, select my megahertz, try to work a little bit with latency, but there was no way to get a stable system with this RAM. Now, I was a little bit disappointed. I know that RAM with Ryzen is a big issue and you should be careful which RAM you choose. However, in the Corsair website, they're actually listing this RAM as being compatible with Ryzen. Now, I don't know if by being compatible, they just mean, well, yeah, it can run to 2133, but good luck to go to 3000 as advertised. So I probably have just overpaid for the 3000 MHz, although it's also the RGB fancy RAM. I'm very happy with it, but I cannot use it at its full speed. Now, checking actually on the Asus website, I actually see that the Corsair RAM is not listed. So my suggestion is do not look on the RAM manufacturer if it's compatible with Ryzen. Choose your motherboard and then only select the RAM that is being tested by the motherboard manufacturer. Now, I hope that with some BIOS update, these RAM sticks will be fully compatible and I will be able to run them at 3000 MHz. So, complete failure on doing RAM overclock, but I was able to very easily overclock the CPU. Ryzen, all of them, as you know, are unlocked, and I was able to overclock it easily to 3700 MHz from 3200, so a 500 MHz overclock with the stock cooler. Everything is fine. I just changed the multiplier to 37 and left the core clock to 100 MHz. So with this, everything is stable and I'm very happy with the performance. For example, when I'm rendering videos in Resolve, I'm now double the speed. So before, if I was recording a 7-minute video, was a 7-minute export on my i5. On the Ryzen 5, instead, we are seeing that being exported in 3 minutes, so half of the time, which is great. Also, gaming wise, I was a little bit worried with certain titles, such as, for example, Arma 3, but it's performing flawlessly with Ryzen. And in general, gaming is much improved compared to the i5 4460 that I had in my previous build. It's light years ahead. I can play everything at 60 FPS butter smooth. So with the i5, I was able with the RX 480 to reach the 60 FPS on 1080p especially, but I was always having a little bit of micro stutter and the system was always seems to be a little bit behind, so the CPU was actually bottlenecking. Now in this build, I actually have the double amount of RAM with 16 GB, and I can experience very much pleasant gameplay. Everything is running butterly smooth. Some of the titles I'm even able to play them at 1440p, maybe with a little bit below 60 FPS, but having a FreeSync monitor, everything is fine when you are above the 40, and it's everything is much more solid with this Ryzen CPU. So I'm overall happy. I feel a little bit let down by Asus because their software is not available for Windows anymore. I don't know when they're going to release a new update for that, and I'm a little bit disappointed with the overall situation with the RAM support with Ryzen. It's too complicated to ensure that you buy something and you're going to be able to run it at the advertised speeds. So be careful when you're out there buying RAM for Ryzen. Be sure that you check in the motherboard manufacturer. Be sure you also have a look to the episode 1 and episode 2 if you want to have a full idea of all the parts that has been used in this build. I hope you enjoyed the intro and you get a good idea of how the machine looks like, and please subscribe. As you know, YouTube changed the partner programs thresholds. You need to have 1,000 subscribers and I just passed barely 100 in 1 year, so not really sure where I'm going with this channel. So if you want to keep seeing my face, if you like these videos, please subscribe, please support the channel, share it with your friends, and let them know that hey, there is this new YouTuber rambling about Ryzen builds and PC gaming. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and see you in the next one.